Okay, so I'm at a wildlife refuge east of the Columbia Gorge, and this was the site of another of the temporary lakes that Lake Missoula formed on its route to the ocean. And this was a lake called Lake Condon, and like Lake Lewis and these other temporary lakes, it stretched for miles and miles and miles in northern Oregon. And while the waters were rushing through the Columbia Gorge, it kind of filled up this temporary lake, and it deposited a lot of soil that it stripped out from the scablands. And that nice, pleasant silt is really excellent for farming. And at this wildlife refuge, you can see these plants behind me grown as wildlife habitat. They owe that existence thanks to these floods and the soil that they stripped from Washington and deposited it out here. So it's just kind of amazing that something as simple as just a group of crops that you see sitting here owes this existence to a cataclysmic flood 15,000 to 13,000 years ago. It's just pretty amazing to be at that point of the cycle where you have the significant violence through the restrictions and then places where the water was just a little bit more settled and was able to drop some of the silt here and benefit us all these years later.
Where water can be found, the vegetation that grows on the old floor of Lake Condon grows a spectacular green. A tranquil land birthed by waters in waiting. Verdant paradise sprung from the ancient echoes of Lake Missoula. Once under up to 1,000 feet of water, beautiful trees now stretch skyward. The landscape speaks of Lake Missoula's story. If there's one thing the floods have taught me, it's that the past is not merely the past, but a tangible thing that permeates our world.
You know, there's something really cool about this Lake Missoula trip. Is just sort of transitioning between these zones of utter devastation and just these violent forces cascading through mountains and carving them out and creating giant gulfs in the landscape and scarring out the soil. But then you have these interludes, these periods where they created these large lakes. And it has a very different feel to it. You know, all the silt from eastern Washington that it dropped here to allow that kind of plant growth. It's just fantastic. It feels almost serene in a way that certainly disappears once you get into places like the Columbia Gorge. As soon as those bottlenecks happen, you'll remember just how powerful of a beast you're dealing with Lake Missoula. So it's nice to experience the full range that comes with what happened with the Lake Missoula floods. And pretty soon, we're off to the gorge.
Like the floods themselves, I wouldn't stay here for long and was destined for the Columbia Gorge. Until next time, wander in wonder.